Hi guys! Tonight, we're heading somewhere so cold that your eyelashes might freeze together before you even blink. You find yourself on the deck of a medieval pirate ship. The wooden boards slick with frost, the dark sea stretching endlessly around you like spilled ink. A sharp wind slices through your coat, and you wonder how anyone could possibly sleep here, let alone dream. But they did, and tonight, you're going to discover how. Before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, share where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights and let's step into the story. Your boots crunch against the frozen deck with each step, the sound sharp in the silence. Long past midnight, the sea is unusually still, the kind of quiet that seems absolute, as if even the wind has given up. Above, the sails hang stiff and ghostly, heavy with ice, groaning faintly when the ship shifts. A lantern swings near the mast, casting a pale, flickering light, distorted by the curling fog rising from the water. Your fingers are already numb. Your breath puffs white into the black sky. Somewhere below deck, a sailor coughs deeply, wet and ragged. Another mutters a prayer to Saint Elmo, patron of sailors and lightning, unsure if it's gratitude or desperation. The scent of salt, tar, and something sour, maybe unwashed wool or a spoiled barrel, hangs in the air. You glance at the rigging and imagine men climbing it in this merciless cold, hands bare, boots slick, braving the frozen ropes just to adjust the sails. They'd sleep wherever they could. Pirates didn't have luxury cabins, not the kind movies show. Most slept wherever there was room, between barrels, atop coils of rope, wherever the wind might spare them. Winter at sea meant surviving in conditions that would drive most modern sailors below deck, screaming for warmth. You rub your hands together, trying to feel your fingertips. The air tastes metallic, like old coins. Some nights, the cold is so fierce that metal buckles stick to the skin. Even pirates, with all their swagger, couldn't escape nature's cruelty. Ships of the 15th and 16th centuries weren't insulated. Decks leaked, hulls groaned, and a threadbare blanket and the body heat of your crewmates were all that stood between a man and hypothermia. Historians debate whether pirates avoided the far north deliberately or simply had no choice, chasing trade routes. But one thing is certain: winter at sea was relentless. The North Sea turned to slush, the Baltic into glass. Ice formed on rigging, weighing down masts until men chipped it away with knives to prevent sails from snapping. You lean over the bow, looking at a frozen expanse of gray-blue shards, imagining distant ports frozen shut and fishermen stranded ashore hoping for warmth. Pirates aboard this ship had no such hope. Here, cold was a crew member, as constant as the waves. Not all pirates were tropical. The romantic Caribbean image came later. Medieval European pirates between the 13th and 16th centuries often roamed the North Atlantic, the English Channel, and Scandinavian coasts. They raided merchant ships from Hanseatic ports or northern whaling routes. Though the term Viking had faded, echoes remained in these men, living by plunder and sale. Here's a curious fact. Some pirates rubbed whale oil on their hands before sleep to trap heat beneath their skin. Thick, greasy, foul-smelling oil, but when your bones ached from cold, vanity was irrelevant. You can almost feel that residue now, sticky with salt and grime, catching whatever warmth the body could produce. A small hatch leads below deck, spilling faint yellow light. Inside, it's warmer, suffocating perhaps, filled with clusters of men wrapped in stolen or stitched cloth. Some snore through missing teeth, others dream of gold they'll never spend. Sleep on a ship like this is a negotiation between exhaustion and fear.
The wind picks up, whining low through the rigging. You tighten your coat, but it does little. Pirates measured comfort not by softness, but survival. A night without losing a toe counted as luxury. A morning without the hull cracking against ice felt like a blessing. The sea doesn't care for courage or crimes, it simply exists, cold and infinite, testing anyone who dares cross it. Stars above, faint against thin clouds, have witnessed centuries of sailors struggle through nights like this. Orion's belt, the North Star, familiar guides for men who had nothing else. The mast creaks rhythmically, hypnotic, almost a lullaby made of wood and wind. Frost sparkles along the rail, catching the lantern light like tiny gems. The sea breathes in slow waves, asleep itself. Below, the crew sleeps, a strange mix of murderers, runaways, and desperate men. Tonight, they share one enemy, the cold. Sleep was precious, brief, and necessary. You run your hand along the icy deck rail, feeling the rough texture. The ship groans like a living being under strain. Somewhere, a rope snaps. A soft curse follows, fading into the wind. Historians often focus on battles, treasures, and flags, but the truth is in these frozen nights. Pirates slept with boots on because undressing meant death. Blankets were stolen the moment one fell asleep. Sometimes men sang quietly into the dark, voices trembling yet steady, reminding themselves they were still there. The ship rocks beneath your feet, gentle but insistent. Barrels shift, chains rattle. You sense the ghosts of sailors past, each leaving traces of warmth in the endless cold. Under the brittle sky, the story isn't about treasure or glory. It's survival. The most fragile, ancient kind lived one shivering night at a time, holding on to the creaking wood, hoping the sea doesn't notice.
The ship moans with every roll, the air slicing cold, the ropes straining. Moonlight spills across the deck, frost sparkling like powdered glass. Sails stiff with ice form strange, rippling shapes. The ocean is quiet, except for small waves against the hull and the rhythmic knock of a loose rope. You picture pirates attempting sleep amid that chaos, groaning planks and whistling wind. Above deck, shadows moved down below, cramped together in spaces smelling of salt, sweat, and mold. Lantern light flickers, weak, painting slow-moving halos. Metal handles bite cold when touched. Ropes cut palms if gripped too tightly. Slips on icy rigging could mean instant death in black water. Medieval ships were never truly quiet. The flexing wood, waves slapping, and wind in ropes made a living symphony of danger, a harsh white noise. Pirates became accustomed, unable to sleep on land without it. Each vessel carried its own scent: tar, unwashed clothes, stale rum, damp wool, rot, the perfume of survival. The bow beckons, ice-crusted rail glints. Deep inside, snoring rises and falls. Amazingly, they slept through it. Losing sleep at sea could break the mind. Most pirates never lived to old age. Disease, cold, starvation, battle took them young. Yet they found rest amid storms, in threadbare blankets, tucked in corners safe from the wind. Some kept weapons near, cutlasses, pistols, daggers, within arm's reach, even while dreaming. Practicality over paranoia. On a ship of thieves, sleep was perilous. Weapons clinked as men shifted. Beneath your hand, deck vibrations mirror the heartbeat of something ancient. The ship whispers its age and burden.
Historians debate whether pirates preferred above or below deck in winter. Below offered warmth from bodies and enclosed air. Above, fresh air but frostbite risk. Both might be true. You can picture it. One man sweats below, another shivers under stars. Lantern flickers. The mast pulses beneath your shoulder like an old creature breathing. Ropes knock softly in the quiet night. The world shrinks to the ship, sea, and cold. Out here, pirates were trapped between two infinities, the endless sea and the frozen sky. The wind whispers softly across the deck now, gentler than before, carrying the faint scent of salt and smoke. You walk slowly, letting your fingers brush the icy railing, feeling the subtle vibrations of the ship beneath your hand. Each creak, each groan of timber is a voice of its own, telling stories of storms weathered and battles survived. Somewhere below deck, the faint murmur of snoring rises and falls, punctuated by occasional coughs, the sound of men finally surrendering to exhaustion. The sea reflects the pale moonlight, a glassy expanse shimmering with every gentle wave. The horizon is a blur of gray and black, almost impossible to distinguish from the heavens. You take a deep breath, tasting the metallic tang of frost in the air, feeling it settle in your lungs like a cold, steady companion. Every exhale leaves a pale cloud hanging briefly in the night before it fades. A sailor shuffles past, boots scraping softly against frozen wood. His face is shadowed, eyes hollowed with fatigue. yet there is a quiet determination in his step. These men have learned to endure, to find warmth in movement and companionship. No words are exchanged, yet a bond hums between them, born of shared survival. The ship may be their prison, the ocean their relentless foe, but together they navigate both with silent understanding.
Above, the stars pierce the night sky, small, unwavering points of light. Orion, the North Star, and countless others have watched over centuries of sailors, their guidance subtle but constant. You imagine men of old, centuries past, tracing the same constellations, drawing hope from distant lights while clinging to life in frozen holds or atop frost-laden decks. Time feels suspended, a delicate suspension between night and dawn, between life and peril. The sails creak under the gentle wind, heavy with ice that has not yet melted. You can almost hear them sigh with relief as the ship glides forward. Somewhere below, a man hums an old tavern song, soft at first, hesitant, then steady. Another joins, then another. Their voices mingle with the sighing rigging, the soft slap of waves against the hull, and it becomes a lullaby crafted from survival itself. You lean against the mast, letting the rhythm of the ship and the sea seep into you, each note grounding you in the present moment. The smell of tar and wet wood rises in gentle waves. Lanterns flicker softly below, casting warm golden halos over faces drawn tight with fatigue, yet softened by the simple comfort of survival. Men tuck themselves against barrels, coils of rope, and each other, seeking whatever warmth they can find. Blankets, threadbare and precious, are pulled close, while those without huddle in corners, trading comfort silently, instinctively. A sudden whisper of wind rattles the rigging, and the ship tilts gently. Water laps at the hull in a steady, hypnotic rhythm. Somewhere, a rope snaps softly, a reminder that the sea remains alive, watchful and unyielding. Yet here, on this deck and below, life endures. Even in the harshest cold, even in the silent grip of night, the human spirit persists, small and fragile, yet fiercely persistent.
You notice the cat perched atop a coil of rope near the rail, its fur gleaming faintly in the lantern light. It cleans its paws meticulously, unconcerned with the world around it. The men nearby take comfort in its calm, one brushing a finger across its back. The soft purr vibrates into the still air, a reminder that life continues in quiet, subtle ways, no matter how severe the cold, no matter how vast the ocean. Below, the galley smells faintly of smoke and thin stew. A cook hums while stirring, steam curling upward like a ghostly dance in the lantern light. Men sip from shared cups, nodding softly to each other, a silent acknowledgement of endurance, of survival. There is no boast, no fanfare, just the muted celebration of having survived another night, of having found warmth where there should be none. The cold is no longer sharp, merely present, a gentle brush against exposed skin. Frost glimmers along the edges of the deck, catching the faint glow of the lanterns like scattered diamonds. You pause at the railing, gazing at the mirrored surface of the sea. The stars above shimmer, their reflections trembling faintly with each small ripple. Everything feels still yet alive, a delicate balance of danger and comfort, fear and relief. Some men below shift, murmuring quietly in their sleep, dreams tangled with memories of storms and battles, of ports unseen and lands unexplored. One dreams of warmth, another of treasure, another simply of surviving another night. The ship rocks slowly beneath them, a gentle cradle against the cold, unfeeling ocean. Each movement is a reminder of fragility, of the thin line between endurance and collapse.
Above deck, the wind sighs through the rigging, steady and rhythmic. The sails, though stiff with ice, catch the slightest movement, propelling the ship forward into the night. The horizon remains indistinct, a soft blur where sea meets sky. Time stretches and contracts, measured only by the sway of the ship and the soft sounds of life around you. Even in this frozen, remote corner of the world, warmth exists in small pockets. The body heat of a comrade, the glow of a lantern, the hum of a song, the purr of a cat. The cold does not bite as fiercely now. It is a companion, steady and impartial, marking the passage of time without cruelty. You breathe in, filling your lungs with the briny, metallic air, and exhale slowly, letting the rhythm of the ship and sea become part of your own heartbeat. Every sound, the soft slap of waves, the creak of the wood, the subtle knock of a rope, blends into a lullaby that has played for centuries on these waters. Pirates slept in the harshest of conditions, not for comfort, but necessity. Blankets, oil, the warmth of fellow sailors, and careful positioning near weapons all played a part in surviving night after night. Above or below, each man had to make choices, balancing exposure and suffocation, cold and crowding. Survival became instinct, every habit sharpened by repeated experience in unforgiving seas. You lean once more against the railing, staring at the faint shimmer of the horizon. Somewhere out there lies land, distant and unseen. But tonight it does not matter. The sea is calm, the wind gentle, and the ship carries life steadily forward. The crew, below and above, rests in whatever comfort they can claim, their breath and heartbeat blending into the rhythm of the vessel. Every creak and groan becomes a companion, a reminder of survival, of endurance, of the fragile human warmth that persists against the cold.
And in that moment, the endless night feels almost serene. Frost sparkles faintly on deck, lantern light flickers softly, the sea hums against the hull, men sleep or hum songs into the night. Even the cat, perched silently, seems to share the quiet understanding that survival has its own kind of poetry. And you, standing there, feel the heartbeat of centuries beneath your feet, the silent, enduring rhythm of men who faced storms, ice, and isolation, yet found rest amidst it all. Tonight, the pirates sleep, not with ease, but with accomplishment. Each breath, each heartbeat, a victory over the merciless cold. Every small movement, every warm ember of shared life, a triumph against the vast, indifferent sea. The ship glides forward, the night deepens, and for now, the world outside this fragile wooden vessel is suspended, held gently in the balance between endurance and peace. The frozen sky stretches endlessly above, the dark sea unfolding below like an ink spill across the horizon. Between these two vast expanses, the fragile wooden planks of the ship are the only true home. You pause for a long moment, letting your eyes roam across the deck, now a map of frost, moonlight, and ice. Every crack, every nail, every frozen puddle tells a story of stubbornness, courage, and survival. Below, the men lie sleeping, or something that resembles it, while the ship whispers and groans around them. You stand there, breath hanging in the frigid air, and for an instant you almost feel what they felt. The uneasy peace between fear and exhaustion. The strange, fragile beauty of surviving one more night amidst a world that seems bent on swallowing them whole. Slowly, you descend the short ladder to the lower deck, where the air thickens and carries the combined scent of tar, salt, old wood, and bodies pressed too close together. The sound of the sea softens into a muted hum, replaced by the gentle sway of ropes and the soft, deep groan of the hull.
Here, the sleeping pirates are revealed in all their harsh, unvarnished reality. They do not rest on feather beds or in orderly bunks, but in narrow hammocks strung side by side, creaking in rhythm with the ship's movements. Your breath catches as you take it all in. It is like stepping into another world, a floating, rocking cave, dimly lit by lanterns casting dull golden halos, their light swinging slowly and making shadows crawl across the beams. Each hammock holds a body wrapped in rough, uneven fabric. They appear peaceful, yet the truth is far harsher. The sea never truly allows anyone rest. Hammocks were not designed for comfort initially. Early sailors learned the hard way that sleeping on the deck was dangerous. One sudden roll of the ship could throw a man into walls, barrels, or planks, leaving him bruised or broken. Suspended by ropes, hammocks moved with the vessel rather than against it, cradling a man gently even amidst the waves. Pirates adopted them quickly, realizing that a night spent in a hammock could mean waking with all ribs intact. You step closer, letting your fingers brush the rough, salt-stiffened fibers. The texture is gritty, coarse, and abrasive against skin already chapped from the sea air. Some pirates, when lucky, lined their hammocks with stolen sailcloth or scraps of fur, seeking to trap even the smallest measure of warmth. The fabric carries the faint scent of smoke, sweat, and salt, a pungent, earthy aroma that has become synonymous with survival. The rhythm of swaying hammocks blends into a low, hypnotic chorus. Each one creaks at its own pitch, forming a subtle, dissonant lullaby. The sound has weight, almost tangible, like the very heartbeat of time itself, swinging back and forth in sync with the rolling vessel.
You notice one man stir, murmuring intelligibly in his sleep. Another shifts, and his hammock spins lazily before settling back into place. Somewhere above, water drips steadily through deck seams, plinking into a bucket with soft, measured percussion. Drafts snake down through the cracks, making the lantern flames flicker.
Pulling your coat tighter, you feel the cold cling to your skin like a living thing. Pirates were hardened, yes, but even the strongest could be broken by exhaustion. Records from merchant vessels of the same period note that sailors routinely worked 18-hour days in brutal weather, sleeping only in fragmented bursts. Pirates faced the same relentless demands, 2 hours here, 3 hours there. No one ever truly slept. Every creak could signal a leak. Every noise could mask a blade. Historians still debate how pirates divided sleep during the harshest winters. Some suggest a strict rotation, half the crew awake while the rest slept. Others argue pirate life was far more chaotic, with men collapsing wherever exhaustion claimed them. The truth is probably somewhere in between, buried in salt, sweat, and the silence of the open sea. The hammocks hang so close that you could touch 3 men with one outstretched hand. Privacy is nearly impossible. Every breath, snore, and whisper becomes a shared experience. Even here, pirates formed a kind of family, not through loyalty, but through necessity. On the coldest nights, moisture hung heavily in the air. Your own breath clouds even indoors, mixing with the scent of damp wool, human closeness, and salt. A sudden creak echoes sharply as the ship shifts, and some men murmur or stir in response. One opens an eye briefly, then closes it again, accustomed to sleeping through the ship's endless motion. The waves, the groaning planks, the rocking motion, all of it forms a lullaby that steadies the crew like children being rocked to sleep. A surprisingly human habit emerges in the records. Pirates would hum softly to themselves or to one another, repeating simple tunes to ward off fear. A melody might travel from one hammock to the next, shifting slightly each time, a sound halfway between music and prayer. At times, the ship seemed to hum back, wood vibrating with the low, muffled voices of men trying to soothe both themselves and each other.
The lower deck is alive with sound. Each creak, drip, and whisper forming a rhythm that feels eternal. The hammocks cradled lives suspended between danger and dreams. Outside, the sea remains a black, merciless expanse. Inside, warmth and life persisted in fragile, precious pockets. Men drift, half asleep, trusting the ropes to hold, the ship to stay afloat until dawn. You move carefully through the narrow space, ducking under beams, boots sticking slightly to damp planks. The single lantern swings, casting wavering shadows across barrels, bundles, and sleeping men. Every movement produces subtle clinks of metal as weapons jostle against wood. Here is where pirates truly lived, not on decks glittering in moonlight, but below, half buried in ropes, barrels, blankets, and each other. The journals of the late Middle Ages described the lower deck as both haven and prison. Up above, frost could kill. Down below, stale air could suffocate. Most men preferred the latter. Every cough, every whisper echoed.
Alliances and grudges formed silently. Stories passed in half-breaths. The cold ruled outside, but inside, warmth came from company and the shared rhythm of existence. You crouch near tattered blankets, coarse and patched from wool, linen, and thin fabrics barely providing cover. A few men share one, huddled in exhausted silence. In a corner, a small figure, no older than 15, curls against a barrel. Young hands performed the dirtiest work, cleaning decks, running messages, patching leaks. Many never saw land again. For them, the lower deck was bedroom, classroom, and prison all at once.
Pressing your hand against the hull, you feel the cold, pulsing faintly with the movement of the waves. Sleep was not about comfort, it was escape. Crews improvised divisions in the hold with ropes or cloth, creating illusions of privacy. Some carved charms into beams, hoping for protection from the sea. A few kept a small ember in a sand-covered bowl as a fragile promise of warmth, calling it the ship's heart. If it died, superstition warned of misfortune. You take it all in, the murmured stories, whispered memories, boasts of raids, tales of storms survived, echoes of homes never seen again. The air grows thick with these layered sounds, waves, wind, the ship's groans, the low rhythm of sleepers. And yet, within this chaos, a strange comfort emerges. Here, in the ship's belly, life persists. The harmony of creaks, sways, hums, and snores becomes a lullaby for survival. Each hammock holds a life suspended, each breath a small victory. Outside, the sea is infinite. Inside, the pirates endure. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the pulse of this world, the gentle sway and murmurs sink into you. This is the heart of pirate life, the rhythm of danger and rest intertwined, the fragile human warmth that carries men through the coldest, darkest nights at sea. The ship breathes with its crew, lungs filled with salt, smoke, and the faint warmth of human dreams. You kneel beside one hammock, studying the man within. His tangled beard obscures half his face, rough fabric pressed against his cheek. One arm hangs loose toward the floor, fingers twitching as if still clutching a rope, a sword, or some unfinished task. Even in sleep, he cannot fully release the grip of his work. The sea allows no such surrender. For a long moment, you close your eyes and imagine sleeping here. The weight of heat pressing down, the smell of mold and sweat rising from the crowded deck, the timbers sighing with every gentle swell. Yet amid the discomfort, there is a strange, gentle rhythm. The ship rocks without question, a cradle carved from hardship and endurance. One forgotten sailor once wrote in a marginal note that below deck the vessel itself holds her breath. You feel it now. The air is thick but quiet, as though the ship waits patiently while her men sleep. Above, the bitter cold howls, but down here, in this dim cocoon, the crew finds fragile peace, a brief reprieve
before the waves awaken with the dawn. You rise slowly, making your way back toward the main deck. The cold air greets you immediately, biting at your cheeks and nose. The sharp tang of ocean salt mixes with the scent of damp ropes and old tar. The sky is a muted steel gray, and a few flakes of snow whisper through the wind. The crew begins to stir. One man stretches his arms, letting out a groan. Another coughs, his breath forming tiny clouds that vanish into the morning air. You notice their clothing. Nothing uniform, nothing neat. Layers of wool, linen, canvas, and hide, stitched, patched, or repurposed from anything salvaged. Some wear skirts torn from women's garments, others robes stolen from priests, sewn crudely into cloaks. Pride has no place here. Warmth is survival.
The wind snaps the stiff sails above. Frost stiffens every rope and knot. Men rub their hands together, stamp their feet, coaxing warmth back into their limbs. One laughs bitterly, muttering, "The sea steals heat faster than it steals gold." Merchant logs of the 15th century recount winter voyages as tests of endurance rather than navigation. The cold froze sails, stiffened ropes, and men perished not to storms, but to creeping frost. Blankets were scarce. Extra layers were prized. When those failed, pirates stuffed clothing with moss, straw, or shredded sailcloth. Some rubbed seal fat over exposed skin before nightfall, a primitive insulation that trapped heat and kept moisture from freezing. The odor was horrendous, thick and fishy, but it saved fingers from frostbite. You can almost smell it now, carried faintly on the morning breeze. The cold is not merely a sensation here. It is a presence, seeping from deck to timber, through bones to muscle. You notice how every movement grows deliberate, energy conserved with every step. No fire burns on deck, only the faint warmth of bodies huddled together. Scholars still debate whether northern pirate crews relied on plundered furs and coats or simply layered garments haphazardly. Likely the answer varies by ship, by voyage. One thing is certain, no man faced the cold unprepared twice. Crouching, you study the frost-laced deck boards. White streaks cling to the grain, each breath vanishing instantly into the icy air. You imagine the pirates each morning, shaking out frozen hammocks, tugging boots hardened as stone overnight, swearing at the sea, laughing at it, knowing complaint cannot summon warmth. The planks are thin, uninsulated, sealed only by pitch and tar that crack in deep frost. Each gust slips through seams. Every splash of seawater freezes in minutes. Wet clothes must be beaten against the mast until ice shatters, or a man risks freezing where he stands.
The ship itself becomes a wardrobe of frozen cloth, limp and brittle, each layer stiff as the hide of some great sea creature. Overhead, a seagull cries, its voice slicing through silence. Pirates glance up instinctively. One jokes that even gulls avoid this winter. Laughter sparks briefly, a fragile warmth, before fading into quiet once more. You take in the scene. Each pirate wrapped differently. Patched wool, layered sailcloth, perhaps fragments of tapestry. They look less like a crew, more like ghosts draped in the remnants of a forgotten world. There is a stark, painterly beauty here. Faded reds, browns, and grays catch the light mutedly. The wind tugs at edges, setting fabric fluttering. A sudden crack breaks the morning calm. A rope snaps above, sharp and loud, like glass. Pirates curse, sluggish from sleep, but alert in instinct. The cold slows them, yet sharpens focus. Their breath trails in the air like faint smoke. When the rope is secured, the ship settles again into its rhythm. Waves lap the hull. One man yawns, tightening his cloak, murmuring of cold that creeps into dreams. Out here, the cold reaches into thought before sleep. Layered garments are more than warmth. They are armor against nature, despair, the indifference of the sea. Each patch, each scrap sewn by tired fingers, tells of men refusing surrender. Their breaths rise like ghosts in pale morning light. Above, sails crack softly as wind stirs, and the ship moves onward, carrying shivering legends across an unforgiving horizon. Following the faint scent of smoke and ash, you move toward the galley, where pirates cook, argue, and struggle to stay warm. The passage narrows. Boots thud softly against damp boards. The air grows heavy, tinged with burned fat, tar, and faint iron from metal tools clinking nearby.
Inside the galley, the light is dim, cast by a single oil lamp, swaying gently from a chain. Its amber glow trembles across the rough walls, painting everything in fleeting shades of gold and shadow. You notice the small blackened hearth, built from stones and reinforced with iron plates. A few embers glow faintly at its center, but there is no open flame. Pirates knew better than to risk that. Fire on a wooden ship was every sailor's nightmare. One spark could turn the vessel into an inferno before anyone even reached water. Most of the time, the crew chose the cold. You crouch near the hearth, watching the tiny glow pulse. The air smells of wet wood, boiled salt beef, and smoke trapped for days. The pirates gather around it like moths, stretching their hands toward the warmth, careful not to touch the iron. Fingers are cracked, raw from the cold. A few sip slowly from tin cups of rum, eyes fixed on the embers, silently hoping they will not die out. From ship logs, a curious practice emerges. To create warmth without open fire, crews often filled iron pots with heated stones or sand. The pots were sealed with cloth and carried below deck. The heat lasted for hours, just enough to thaw stiff fingers or melt ice clinging to ropes. You can almost smell the scorched fabric mingling with the sea air. Outside, the wind moans faintly, pressing through every crack. The lamp flickers, casting long shadows that dance across the walls. The pirates move slowly. One scrapes the last bits of food from a pan. Another wipes his knife on his sleeve, muttering about the cold settling into his bones. They speak of warmth as though it were treasure. Scholars still debate how crews managed heat during deep winter voyages. Some claim small shielded braziers burned in open air when seas were calm. Others argue sealed lanterns filled with whale oil provided faint warmth, multiplied by layers of wool and bodies pressed together. Whatever the truth, it was a dangerous balance. One mistake could mean death by fire or frost.
You sit among them. The coal's glow breathes like a living thing. Every few seconds, a pirate stirs the ashes with a stick, coaxing more life from the fragile heat. The room feels smaller as warmth returns, as if the air itself softens. Shoulders drop, eyes half close. Then someone laughs softly, pointing at a dented copper kettle hanging from a hook. The handle is wrapped with rope, and a small wooden fish dangles from it, a charm, a promise that the ship will not burn. Pirates carried such tokens everywhere, pieces of bone, shells, or driftwood carvings, each imbued with faith. In a world of ice and salt, superstition had weight. The ship tilts slightly beneath your feet. The few drops of hot water hiss as they fall from a pot. Pirates curse quietly, steadying pans. One jokes that the ship must be jealous of the warmth. Laughter ripples again, short but genuine. A small victory, proof that spirits burn even when fire cannot. Outside, wind rises. Sails strain, ropes hum under tension, the sound traveling down through the wooden hull. A reminder that cold waits always, just beyond the walls. Pirates glance at the ceiling instinctively. The sea is never far. Accounts from a 14th century voyage describe sailors using heated cannonballs to warm quarters, rolled in sand, placed in metal boxes to radiate heat. The risk was immense, but the reward, a few hours of bearable cold, was worth it. You imagine the faint red glow flickering across exhausted faces, catching scars and beards, eyes dulled by fatigue. They lean close to chase warmth that never lasts. Smoke, sweat, and old rum mix in the air. The noise of the ship fades until only the slow crackle of coals remains.
Keeping the fire alive became sacred. The ship's heartbeat, a pulse of light against the dark. Sailors would stay awake long after others slept, tending fragile heat as if guarding life itself. You lean back, listening to the faint music of waves against the hull. Wind continues its song above. Pirates stretch, shoulders glowing faintly, breath misting in the dim light. For a moment, the room feels human, almost safe. Then the lamp flickers and the cold slips back in, quiet but patient. Warmth fades, leaving only ashes and salt. You feel the air change, a reminder that comfort is fleeting at sea. Yet in this fleeting moment, embers glow, eyes grow heavy, and somewhere deep in the ship, a small coal keeps breathing. You climb toward the middeck, where light is thin and blue, a sign of day, though the sun has not yet conquered the mist. The air is brittle, as if it might shatter with a breath. Rigging hums with wind, sails strain, timbers creak in slow rhythm. Not chaos, but duty. The ship never sleeps, not even when the crew tries. The night watch dictates the rhythm of life. Pirates, like naval crews, divided time into shifts. Some kept guard while others rested. Every few hours, a bell would ring, marking the rotation. Historical records describe this both as discipline and curse. Too much rest meant danger. Too little rest meant madness. Pirates, loath to follow rules, bent schedules to their moods. Some slept 2 hours at a time. Others refused rest until exhaustion forced them down. The hours mattered less than the rhythm, the pulse of the ship, life that never stopped. Leaning on the railing, you feel its cold beneath your palms. The horizon glows faintly. Men shuffle from below deck, eyes blurry, hair matted with frost. One yawns audibly. Another splashes seawater on his face, gasps, and laughs at the shock. Their voices are hoarse, yet alive. The next watch has begun. A 16th century sailor noted that watchmen used music to stay awake, soft humming, rhythmic stamping, tapping spoons on barrels. It kept time with the rocking ship. You can almost hear it now, a slow murmuring percussion floating across the deck like a heartbeat.
The man at the wheel grips it tight, fingers red and cracked. The ship tilts as he adjusts course. Beside him, another peers into the mist, searching for ice or enemy sails. Silence is their language. Their movement is meditative, bodies following the ocean's rhythm. Sailors called the sea both torment and teacher. Motion seeps into the bones, even during sleep. Men returning to land often swayed unconsciously for days, balancing on invisible waves. Not all watches are peaceful. Darkness sometimes hides more than waves. One man glances over his shoulder, checking shadows as if creatures lurk below. Fear of being alone in the dark ocean outweighed battle itself. The rotation continues. Men finishing their shifts stumble below deck, gray with fatigue, rubbing their chests against the chill. They sleep now, if noise and cold allow, until the next bell calls them again. Experts debate the true amount of rest pirates got. Some slept less than 4 hours per day. Others took longer naps between raids. The truth lies somewhere between exhaustion and necessity. You step closer to the main mast. A lantern hangs, flickering weakly, its light spreading across frost-covered ropes and railings. You run your fingers along a rope, feeling stiff salt crust that crunches beneath your touch. Everything here bears the sea's imprint. One pirate begins to whistle softly, low and steady, joining the rhythm of the waves. A slow, mournful tune drifts from one of the pirates, more like grief than music. The others glance in his direction, but do not interrupt. The sound curls through the air, weaving around masts and fading into the distance. It fills the silence without breaking it. In this rhythm, the ship becomes a living organism, each man a cell, each watch a heartbeat. When one falters, the rest must carry on. This understanding
binds them more tightly than any code of loyalty. The ocean teaches unity through fear.
Some crews maintained a curious tradition during watch changes. A small token, perhaps a carved bead, a button, or a scrap of rope, would pass from one sailor to the next. The man beginning his shift would hold it briefly, whisper something only he could hear, then tie it to his wrist. To drop it, to lose it, was a sign of misfortune. You picture rough, frost-bitten hands exchanging that tiny object in the freezing air, a simple act with enormous meaning. The sky lightens slightly, a faint promise of day. The sea remains dark, glittering only where drifting ice catches the weak light. Pirates scan the horizon, eyes narrowed against wind that cuts like knives. Sleep clings to their faces, but alertness slowly returns. The bell rings, hollow and distant, swallowed by mist. Another rotation begins, another exchange between sleep and duty. You realize that this rhythm never stops, not for storms, not for exhaustion, not even for fear. The life of the ship depends on it. Closing your eyes, you let the bell's sound echo through your chest. It is no longer harsh. It is breathing, constant and calm, an anchor against the chaos of the sea. The pirates live and sleep by that rhythm, and in a strange way, so do you. Night deepens. The cold grows heavier, the air thick enough to drink. Purple clouds bruise the sky, and the waves move sluggishly, as if the sea itself is weary. The ship glides like a tired animal. Lanterns swing lazily. Pirates huddled together, faces pale and shadowed. Tonight, rum will be their only warmth. Its scent reaches you first, sweet, sharp, earthy, a mix of molasses and smoke. A flask passes along the line, each man taking a silent turn. The liquor burns the throat, yet blurs the edges of the cold, softening the night. One man sighs with relief, as if he can finally feel his heart again.
Historical journals note rum's dual role aboard ships of this age. It comforted and cursed. Strong, it numbed pain, quieted fear, filled empty bellies. Yet it dulled reflexes, frayed tempers, and fueled fights that sometimes ended with blood on the planks. Pirates, unlike disciplined naval crews, drank as they wished. A cask might last a week or vanish in a single night, depending on mood and misery. You sit among them, listening. Laughter carries easily, low and rough. Stories drift between truth and imagination, stitched together by the rhythm of cups. One man recalls a raid near the Canary Islands, where drinking outnumbered fighting. Another swears he saw frost so thick on a beard it broke when the man smiled. Some crews mixed rum with seawater, both to stretch it and to ease the shock of drinking it neat in the cold. They called it grog. The salt burned the throat, but soothed frozen throats. You can almost taste it, sharp, briny, as if the ocean itself were in the cup. Lantern light catches a bottle, making it glow amber. The pirates watch it as if it were fire. Rum becomes a substitute for heat, a trick for the body and mind alike. Wind moans through rigging. One pirate hums softly, cracked and low. Others join. The melody is slow, uncertain, a lullaby stitched from exhaustion. It is not a song of victory, not of hope, but something older, something belonging to the sea. You feel it in your chest, a strange calm born of too much drink and too little sleep. Experts debate whether alcohol actually helped sailors survive cold. Some claim it only gave the illusion of warmth, pulling heat from the body once the buzz faded. Others suggest small doses offered comfort enough to stave off despair. What no one disputes is its power over morale. A warm drink, even a dangerous one, kept men alive in spirit, if not body.
One pirate wipes his mouth, grinning through cracked lips, yellow teeth, hollow cheeks. He taps the bottle against the mast and mutters, "To the cold, may it drink slower than we do." Laughter follows, brittle beneath the surface. The ship rocks gently. Lantern light ripples across the deck. Men lean against barrels, eyes half closed. Words blur into mumbling. Rum makes time stretch sideways. Minutes slip into hours unnoticed. The rhythm of the sea and the warmth of alcohol blend until even the cold seems far away. But peace is fleeting. A shout rises from the other end of the deck, slurred, harsh. Two men argue over a cup. One pushes the other. Crew members rush, hands gripping shoulders, voices low, careful not to wake the rest. The fight fizzles as quickly as it began. Silence returns, tense and watchful. A superstition drifts across the deck. Spilling rum at sea angers the spirits of drowned men. The liquid belongs to them once it touches wood. Some pirates, after a brawl, pour a few drops overboard, whispering into the dark water. You watch one do so now. The wind carries the smell of rum, mingling with salt. Below deck, a few stir in their hammocks, muttering in sleep. Maybe they dream of taverns, candlelight, soft beds, maybe of warmth that never ends. The bottle returns to you. You lift it to your lips. The taste is harsh, alive. It burns, then fades, leaving the comfort of something shared. Cold presses still against your face, creeping into fingers, but softer now, as if it has agreed to wait. The sails snap once, the ship tilts gently. Rum settles in your stomach like a small ember, not enough to chase away cold, but enough to remind you you are still here. Pirates laugh again, voices slow, rough, carrying through the night. For a fleeting hour, the coldest night at sea feels almost human. By dawn, the rum is gone. The air thickens with salt, smoke, and faint laughter. Pirates settle into corners, pulling blankets close. Eyelids heavy, yet restless. Sleep at sea is not rest, but retreat, a thin layer between exhaustion and memory.
You lean against a wooden beam, feeling the ship breathe beneath you. Men drift into uneasy slumber, faces softening, bodies curling inward. The sea blends with their uneven breathing. Above,
Ropes knock softly against masts, a deliberate, kind rhythm. Letters from captured sailors reveal that pirates often dreamed of land. Beaches, fires, soft beds. Some claimed to see gold spilling from invisible chests, only to vanish when grasped. You imagine the frustration, the longing turned to a nightmare. The colder the sea, the sweeter the dream. An old ballad notes superstition. A man dreaming of fire in winter would not live to see spring. Flames in dreams, omens of fever, storms, or battle. Pirates joked, but half believed it. When warmth is a luxury, even imagined fire is dangerous. One man murmurs in his hammock, lips forming a word that sounds like home. Green fields, smoke curling from hearths. Others shift, tangled in hammocks like fish caught in nets. The ship rocks, the hammocks sway. Peace, almost tangible, descends. Historians note recurring visions among crews long at sea. Soundless lands, solid ground that never moved, birdsong instead of waves. For pirates, whose lives were danger and motion, such dreams were heaven. You close your eyes, imagining their inner world. Even in sleep, the smell of ocean seeps in. The motion of the ship never fades. The sea remains. You might find yourself walking through a market, yet the ground tilts beneath your feet. A face from childhood appears for a moment, only to dissolve into the shape of a wave. The mind, it seems, never lets go of the ocean once it has taken hold.
Experts today still debate whether the isolation of long voyages caused shared hallucinations among sailors. Some say monotony and malnutrition warped their perception of reality. Others argue that the endless rhythm of the waves acted like hypnosis, pulling the mind into a state between waking and dreaming. Whatever the cause, the sea invaded sleep in ways both subtle and cruel. Around you, the pirates shift. A man laughs softly in his dream. Another curses. Somewhere, a snore rises above the rest, causing a ripple of chuckles before silence resumes. Their bodies radiate warmth, a faint mist curling in the air. Lantern light flickers across the ceiling, tracing gentle waves of gold that rise and fall with the motion of the ship. Many pirates were once ordinary sailors, merchants, or fishermen who had known land long before the sea claimed them. Perhaps their dreams are fragments of that other life, a house by the harbor, a woman's voice, the smell of fresh bread. For all their roughness, pirates were human first, and the night reminded them of it. One account from a prisoner's testimony describes a pirate who refused to sleep below deck. He could not bear to dream of dry land. Instead, he slept on the open deck, wrapped in sailcloth, face turned to the stars. The others mocked him, calling him a ghost lover. But he insisted it helped him remember he was free. Weeks later, he disappeared at sea. You listen to the sea outside. It whispers against the hull, almost tenderly. Perhaps that is why pirates came to love and hate it equally. The ocean takes freedom and peace, riches and death in the same breath. In their dreams, they may have tried to make peace with it, to tame it for a few hours before waking.
A small,
almost forgotten detail in a ship's log mentions that some crews encouraged storytelling before sleep. Simple tales of gold or of food guided dreams and gave the mind something worth surviving for. You feel that rhythm now, the murmured breathing, the creak of hammocks, the sigh of the sea. Ancient, almost sacred. The dreams drifting through this ship carry warmth that no fire can give, the warmth of memory, of something human still glowing beneath the cold. You look up. Lantern light dances across the beams, and for a fleeting moment you imagine the ship dreaming with them. Its creaks are whispers, its sway a heartbeat. Perhaps even the wood remembers the warmth of the sun long gone. Surrounded by sleeping men and their fragile dreams, the cold outside feels less cruel. Dawn comes slowly. Dull gray light seeps through heavy clouds, hiding the horizon. The cold bites before you even open your eyes. The ship groans underfoot, timbers stiff with frost. Salted meat smells linger. Somewhere a pan clatters. It is time for the morning meal, though calling it that feels generous. You follow the sound into the galley. A few men huddle around a small table, heads bowed, hands cupped around tin plates. The food looks as tired as they do. Hardtack biscuits chipped like stone, strips of salted beef glistening with oil, a pot of gray stew smelling faintly of brine and smoke. The air is damp and close, filled with boiled fat and wet wool. Old seafaring records reveal that pirates, like other sailors, survived on rations meant to last months. Meat packed in barrels of salt often had to be soaked overnight before cooking. Bread turned to rock within weeks. A broken tooth from ship's biscuits was nothing to marvel at.
You watch a man chew through a piece of beef, jaw working slowly. He grunts, swallows, laughs without humor. "Better than snow," he mutters. Another scoops stew into a tin cup. The liquid is thin, smelling sharply of salt. Some pirates softened hardtack with rum, crumbling it into a porridge sweetened with molasses if available, a rare comfort in biting cold. You almost taste it now, sweet and bitter, warmth spreading just enough to remind you what comfort feels like. The cook stirs a pot with a wooden ladle, hands red from cold, humming softly. An old song from a port you will never see winds through the air, mingling with the clink of spoons and the creak of the ship. Pirates eat in silence, born of exhaustion rather than manners. No fresh vegetables, no fruit, no bread that still bends. Lips cracked, faces pale. Some show the first signs of scurvy. Bleeding gums, slow movements, dull eyes. The sea takes its toll relentlessly. Eating becomes survival more than satisfaction. Inventive cooks attempted to keep spirits up. Crushed biscuits mixed with seawater and grease, or powdered mustard to mask rot. Pirates were not chefs, but they were stubborn. Anything edible became a meal. The man beside you offers a plate of stew. You take it, warmth seeping into your fingers through the metal. The broth tastes of salt and smoke, thin but alive, traveling down your throat and warming a small part of you the cold had forgotten. Around you, spoons scrape plates. For a few minutes, only the sound of eating exists. At the far end of the table, two men argue over the last dried fruit. Voices rise, but no one intervenes. Hunger sharpens tempers faster than rum ever could. The cook slams his ladle against the pot, echoing through the galley. Silence follows, heavy but fleeting. Eating resumes, slower, quieter.
A 14th century travel account notes that sailors sometimes kept small cloth bags of aromatic herbs or citrus peel during meals to mask the stench of spoiled food. You picture a pirate lifting such a charm to his nose, pretending the thin stew tastes like roasted lamb, both ridiculous and deeply human. The air thickens with smoke as the last coals fade. Someone coughs, someone belches, then laughs. The sound ripples through the room like a spark, small but alive. It reminds everyone that they are still alive, still together. Outside, the wind howls again, rattling the ship's sides. The men finish quickly, wiping their mouths on sleeves or old rags. Some save crumbs in small pouches, just in case. Others lick their fingers clean, unwilling to waste even a grain of salt. The cook begins scrubbing his pot with sand and seawater, humming the same tune. Historians still question how pirates managed morale on such meager diets. Some argue that shared meals built unity, a ritual reminding them they were not alone. Others think the monotony of food worsened discipline, feeding mutiny as much as hunger. Both might be true. The galley was the ship's heart, comfort and battlefield all at once. You linger a moment longer. The table is empty now, plates stacked neatly. The smell of salted beef lingers in the air. Faces of men hardened by necessity meet your eyes, dulled by cold, but still alert. The sea may strip softness, but it cannot fully take the will to live.
As you turn to leave, the cook pours the last of the warm water into a small cup and offers it. His hand trembles slightly. "For luck," he says. You take it, warmth seeping into your palms. The taste is plain, salt and metal, but somehow sacred. On this frozen ship, every bit of heat is a blessing. Every meal, no matter how meager, becomes a small act of defiance.
Modern researchers debate whether pirates dared sail this far north. Some say only desperate or lost crews risked these waters. Others believe trade routes and unguarded cargo lured them to the edge of the world. Courage or madness, they entered seas where even the ocean seemed to turn against them. You grip the railing. The ocean stretches flat, endless, a mirror of gray. Pieces of ice drift past like broken glass, knocking gently against the hull. A hollow ring echoes through the planks. Far off, a cracking noise sighs deep, like the earth itself. The ice shifts. The pirates hear it too. Their eyes flick toward the sound, wary. If the ship becomes trapped, the pressure could crush the hull in minutes. No storm, no battle, no fire compares to that slow, invisible death. Tension tightens, a shared breath held too long. An old sea chronicle notes that sailors learned to listen for the song of the ice, a high whistling tone in the night, a warning and a strange beauty. Men described it as the sea singing in its sleep. You think you hear it too, faint beneath the wind.
The pirates continue their work. One climbs the rigging, swinging a small axe. Another drags a barrel across the deck to block a leak. Faces red with cold, eyes watering. No one speaks. The sound of wood cracking, tools striking. Ritual, harsh but necessary. Your breath fogs. Frost forms on your lashes, turning the world to light and shadow. The helmsman grips the wheel, gloves stiff, knuckles white. Every movement careful, a small mistake could send the ship into ice. Lanterns burn low, their light dimmed by frost. The deck glitters faintly, a frozen mosaic of salt and snow. Someone whispers a prayer, words too old to catch. Records from a 15th century Danish voyage describe crews using oil-soaked rags to keep ropes flexible in freezes. Pirates may have copied this, rubbing lines with grease stolen from whalers or merchants. It must have smelled terrible, but it kept the ship alive.
One man kneels at the bow, rubbing thick black paste into ropes, hands shaking but steady. The sky darkens, clouds sinking to touch the horizon. Snow falls heavier now, thick flakes swirling in the wind. The world fades into white. Sea and sky merge. The pirates pause, staring into blankness. Out here, water and air disappear. One laughs softly, breaking tension. "The sea's gone blind," he says. No reply. Silence feels heavier than cold. You stand, flakes settling on shoulders. The cold presses, but air is strangely peaceful. For a moment, it feels as if the world has stopped. Waves vanish, replaced by the faint crackle of ice forming on the hull. The pirates retreat below deck, leaving you alone with whispering snow. You feel small, fragile, completely at the mercy of the frozen world. The ship groans softly beneath you, pushing through a sea turned to glass. Somewhere ahead, the horizon waits, hidden under layers of mist and ice. Now you understand why sailors feared northern waters more than any cannon. By nightfall, the ship grows eerily quiet. Wind softens, but cold sharpens, cutting straight through fabric and bone. The sea is unnervingly calm, waves slow, as though frozen mid-breath. Walking carefully, you hear only creaking timbers and a faint rattling chain. Below deck, stillness weighs heavy. Lanterns burn thin and trembling. Air sour with sickness, damp wood and salt. And man coughs thickly. Another groans softly, rolling in his hammock. Others try to sleep, eyes half open, dull and weary. Old journals describe illness as the true predator of the sea. Frostbite, scurvy, and fever stalking the lower decks as ruthlessly as any enemy ship. Infection spreads fast. A single cough travels quicker than a cannonball.
You kneel beside a sick man, lips cracked, skin pale beneath sweat. He stares at the ceiling, murmuring a prayer you cannot catch. Fingers twitch as if grasping a rope no longer there. Around him, the air feels warmer, heavy with fever.
One curious practice recorded by a ship's physician tells of sailors rubbing vinegar on hands and faces to ward off disease. They believed the sourness killed the invisible mists that carried illness. The pirates here may have tried the same, though the smell of decay suggests it did little good. The vinegar burned, but it offered the illusion of control, and illusions were sometimes all they had. You move deeper into the shadows. A bucket sits near the bulkhead, half full of murky water recently vomited into. A rat darts across the floor, fur sleek, eyes bright. The pirates ignore it. Rats were companions here, both pests and protectors. They warned of rot, and they ate what men could not bear to touch. Historians note that pirates often suffered the same plagues as the naval fleets they hunted: scurvy from lack of fresh food, frostbite from damp clothes, infection turning minor wounds into death sentences. Yet, despite the misery, crews rarely complained openly. To show weakness at sea was to invite mutiny or abandonment. The sick were cared for only as long as they were useful. You glance toward a corner. One man sits awake, sharpening a knife in slow, deliberate strokes. His eyes are distant, focused on nothing. Perhaps he sharpens for comfort, perhaps for fear. The sound of metal scraping against stone fills the silence like a heartbeat. He pauses only to take a drink from a flask, then continues. The sick man beside him watches, hypnotized.
A whisper spreads. The fever has claimed 3 men already. One was thrown overboard without ceremony, wrapped in canvas. They say his body froze before sinking. The others lie below, too weak to move. The living step carefully between them, pretending not to notice. In this cold, grief has no energy to burn. Researchers still debate whether pirates practiced quarantine. Some suggest the ill were pushed aside, kept near the hold. Others describe rough compassion, sharing a blanket, offering a sip of rum. Likely, it depended on the crew and how close death already stood. A shiver runs through the floor as a wave bumps the hull. The lantern sways, casting brief shadows across sleeping men. Their faces flicker between peace and pain. One mutters for water. Another calls for a mother long dead. This darkness holds more than night. It holds every fear that thrives when warmth runs out. A 15th century sailor's journal describes the same hush, the silence before the sea takes her due. The crew stopped singing, arguing, laughing. Only breathing remained, slow and careful, as if noise itself could invite disaster. That silence is here now, pressing on your ears until it feels almost physical. The ship sways again. Somewhere above, a gull cries, lonely and distant. Its sound fades, leaving only the creak of the hull. You think about how fragile this floating world really is. A few inches of wood separating life from freezing water. The men below cling to that wood as if faith alone keeps it from splintering. You inhale,
tasting stale air, cold, sharp, and clean, reminding you how thin the line is between breathing and choking.
You look again at the sick men, faces slick with fever. One lies completely silent. A companion checks him with 2 fingers on his neck, then covers his face with a rag. No one speaks. The work of living continues. Above, the ship rolls onward, indifferent. The cold shows no pity. The sea does not pause. Yet somehow, in the dim light and stifling air, you feel the heartbeat of humanity still pulsing. Each cough, each breath, each small act of care keeps the dark from swallowing everything. Morning returns with a pale sky and uneasy silence. The ship drifts through gray water, slow and heavy. You step along the deck, a thin frost crunching beneath boots. Cold bites even through gloves. Most pirates are awake, moving stiffly, speaking in low voices. Sickness still lingers below, but life continues above. A soft sound catches your ear, a faint, delicate meow. You turn. A small, wiry cat slinks along the railing, fur mottled gray, tail flicking lazily. Its presence feels out of place among worn boots and frozen ropes, yet it moves with the calm confidence of something at home here. One pirate kneels, offering a scrap of dried fish. The cat sniffs, then accepts, purring faintly. Maritime records note that cats were essential crew members long before pirates popularized them. Guardians against rats that could chew through food stores or ropes, they kept vermin away, and spirits lifted in the darkest weather. The small creature winds between the men's legs, brushing against boots. A pirate with frost in his beard lets it climb onto his shoulder. Others grin, softening the hard lines of their faces. The cat curls contentedly, tail wrapped around his neck like a scarf, a small comfort in a vast, cold world.
A curious story from a 16th century sailor's letter claims ship's cats sometimes controlled the wind. A sneeze meant a storm. Washing behind the ears meant a breeze would rise. Sailors treated them with deep respect, half belief, half insurance against fear. The cat leaps down, prowling toward a coil of rope, sniffing before curling into a small, perfect circle. Its quiet purr fills the stillness. Even a sound so small can make the ship feel less empty. Between coils of rope and barrels of salted food, small signs of humanity appear. A piece of cloth stitched like a flower, a crude wooden carving of a woman's face, a seashell tied to a nail. These things mean more than gold. They are reminders of land, warmth, something worth returning to. One pirate sits near the mast, sharpening a knife slowly. Around his neck hangs a charm made from colored glass. Sunlight catches it, scattering across his hands. He notices you watching and shrugs. "Keeps the cold away," he says with a half smile. "The charm might not hold heat, but it holds faith. That's enough." The wind shifts, carrying the smell of salt and tar. The men work with quiet precision, patching sails, scraping frost from planks. The cat follows,
occasionally earning a scratch, a grateful purr echoing like laughter in a place where laughter has grown scarce.
An old chronicler notes sailors believed animals sensed danger before humans did. Cats, dogs, even birds were watched closely for signs of trouble. When a cat flattened its ears or hissed at nothing, the crew took it as a warning. Looking at this small creature now, you understand why. It moves with purpose, eyes bright, as though reading messages in the wind no man can hear. One of the younger pirates kneels beside it, whispering something you cannot catch. His tone is gentle. He scratches behind its ears, then slips it a small piece of dried meat from his pocket. For a moment, he smiles like a boy, shoulders relaxing. The cold, the sickness, the endless gray sea, all of it fades in that small exchange. Even modern historians agree companionship played a crucial role in surviving long voyages. Without warmth or comfort, men lost their minds as easily as their fingers to frostbite. Shared jokes, small rituals, and animals like this cat became anchors for sanity. They reminded the crew that life was still worth protecting, even in misery. You look around and notice other traces of care. Someone has mended a torn blanket with surprising precision using red-dyed thread. Another has carved initials into the mast, perhaps his own, perhaps someone he left behind. These fragments of gentleness feel fragile, but they are stubborn. They refuse to vanish, no matter how fierce the sea becomes.
The cat stretches and yawns, then climbs a beam where it can watch the men below. Its tail sways lazily as it settles into a patch of weak sunlight. The pirates glance up from time to time as if its calm is contagious. Even the sick below deck might sleep easier knowing it is still there, alive and watching. You take one last look at the small animal before turning toward the horizon. The wind has shifted again, colder now, carrying a thin mist across the deck. The cat lifts its head briefly, then curls back into sleep undisturbed. There is something reassuring in that. If a creature so small can find peace here, perhaps the men can too, if only for a little while. The sky brightens slightly, pale silver. The ship continues forward, steady despite ice and wind. Below deck, the coughing fades for now. Above, the cat dreams in sunlight, and the pirates work quietly, bound together by exhaustion, superstition, and the faint, stubborn warmth of their small comforts. You push open the door to the captain's quarters, half expecting warmth and grandeur. Instead, another pocket of cold air greets you, tinged with damp wood and lamp oil. The cabin is small, more a narrow box than a room, with a single lantern hanging from a beam that groans with each movement of the ship.
The light spills over a desk cluttered with maps, scraps of parchment, and a cracked compass. The captain sits hunched over it, coat heavy, shoulders curved like a man carrying more than the weight of frost. His hands, rough and scarred, rest beside an open book. You cannot see what he writes, but the soft scratch of the quill on paper is steady, deliberate, almost comforting. Captains in the age of sail often had the illusion of privilege,
but their cabins offered little more than privacy. Historical logs from 15th century voyages described rooms like this, cramped, drafty, filled with the groan of timbers. The captain slept alone, yes, but he was never free from the sea's reach. Cold slid in through every crack, and the noise never stopped. You step closer. Light catches his face. Older than he likely is, eyes sunk deep beneath dark circles. A faint line of frost glitters in his beard where his breath has frozen. He glances up, nods once, then returns to writing. His expression is not unkind, just tired, bone-tired in the way only those who have led men through storms can understand. On the table beside him sits a half-empty bottle and a single pewter cup. The faint smell of rum lingers. Next to it lies a polished but worn pistol and a folded handkerchief, embroidered initials now faded, almost invisible. You sense the handkerchief belonged to someone else, someone left behind. A captured pirate's journal notes that captains often wrote at night to calm their thoughts. Some kept ledgers of loot and supplies, others recorded dreams, regrets, or prayers. A few wrote letters they would never send. It was the only way to speak honestly when surrounded by men who worshipped bravado.
You glance at the bed against the wall. Little more than a wooden frame with a straw-stuffed mattress. The blanket is thick but worn, patched with mismatched fabric. A lantern hangs nearby, its glow too weak to warm the air. The pillow looks damp from condensation. So much for luxury. The captain sleeps no better than his crew. He sighs quietly, setting aside the quill. His hands tremble slightly as he flexes stiff fingers. Then, as if remembering something, he opens a small box beside the desk. Inside are coins, bits of metal, and a single locket. He opens it briefly, revealing a miniature painting of a woman's face, serene in expression. He looks at it long before closing the lid. One sailor's testimony notes that captains hid tokens like this, not just for sentiment, but for sanity. Leadership at sea was isolation in its purest form. Every decision could mean life or death, and mistakes left marks that never healed. The locket, the drink, the diary, all small defenses against guilt. The ship shifts, groaning as the hull scrapes ice. The lantern swings, casting light across the walls. You notice carvings etched into the wood, marks of storms survived or ports visited. One stands out, a rough cross cut deep into the grain. Newer than the rest, perhaps a memorial, perhaps a plea. The captain glances at it, then looks away quickly. A gust of wind rattles the small window. He stands, adjusts his coat, and looks outside. His reflection in the glass is pale and ghost-like, trapped behind the frost. The sea is dark, flakes of snow clinging to the edges of the pane. He breathes out, fogging the glass, then wipes it away with his sleeve. The motion is automatic,
almost tender.
Modern historians still wonder how captains balanced authority with humanity on such ships. Some believe they ruled with cruelty to keep order. Others argue compassion was the only way to survive in such close quarters. The truth likely shifted from man to man, storm to storm. This captain seems quiet, steady, but the silence around him carries its own weight. He moves toward the bed and sits, rubbing his temples. His pistol remains within reach, gleaming faintly. You sense that he sleeps lightly, if at all. Perhaps every creak of the ship wakes him. Perhaps he dreams of mutiny, or the faces of those who never return from raids. In one old chronicle, a captured sailor wrote that a captain's sleep is a coin flipped by the sea. If the night is calm, he might rest. If not, he lies awake, listening to the water whispering around the hull, counting every sound that could mean danger. You imagine that now, the steady rhythm of the sea outside, the quiet pulse of guilt inside. He finally stretches out on the bed, pulling the blanket around him. The lantern's glow softens, the room shrinking slightly. His breathing slows, though his eyes remain open a moment longer. Outside, the wind hums low, pressing against the glass. You linger in the doorway, watching him settle. There is no grandeur here, no romance of piracy, only a man who bears too much silence. He closes his eyes at last, and the lantern flickers once before steadying. The ship creaks like an old lullaby. For all the chaos above deck, this small cabin holds a fragile calm. The captain sleeps alone, but not peacefully. The cold keeps watch with him, whispering softly through the cracks, reminding him of everything he has gained and lost.
Night falls again, thick and silent. Lanterns on deck burn low, their light rippling across wet wood like trembling stars. You move slowly through the corridor toward the crew quarters. The air feels heavier now, charged with something unspoken. Down here, sleep no longer comes easily. The men lie in their hammocks, faces half hidden in dim light. A few whisper to one another, voices sharp and hurried. Others stare upward at the beams, eyes wide open. The ship groans softly, a sound almost like breathing. Somewhere, a bottle rolls and clinks. Someone curses under his breath. From countless old ship logs, we know tension thrived on long voyages. Hunger, frost, exhaustion, and fear built slowly until they burst. Pirates were no exception. They lacked the discipline of navies, but they understood anger all too well. When warmth and food ran thin, words became weapons. You move closer to a cluster of hammocks where three men speak in low tones. Their voices are thick with drink and resentment. "He keeps the best rations for himself," one says. "The captain eats soft bread while we chew salt." Another mutters something about the sick being thrown overboard too soon. Their words coil through the air like smoke, quiet but poisonous. A small detail from an intercepted pirate letter mentions that captains often slept with weapons close at hand, not because of battle, but because of mutiny in the dark. Men driven by cold and hunger could forget loyalty in a heartbeat. You look at these faces and wonder which are still loyal, which already plotting.
A sudden thud echoes from the far corner,
as a man drops from his hammock. He sways slightly before standing. His eyes glint in the half-light. "Keep your mouth shut," he growls. No one answers. The tension thickens, settling on your skin like frost. Scholars still argue what fueled mutinies most. Greed, some say, despair, others. Here, in the biting cold of endless nights, despair feels the more dangerous enemy. Greed needs planning. Misery needs only silence. The standing pirate finally moves away, footsteps heavy on the boards. The others watch him leave, saying nothing. One whispers, "Hell snaps soon." They share a short laugh, the kind that carries no humor. You realize they all fear one another now. Sleep has turned from refuge to risk. The lantern flickers, making shadows lurch across the walls. The ship sways gently, but the mood inside remains sharp, brittle. Even the cat curled in a corner keeps its eyes open, ears twitching at every sound. The men pull blankets tighter, turning their backs to one another. A curious fact from a 15th century trial record described a mutiny that began over a blanket. One man took another's during a freezing night. By morning, blood stained the deck. The court called it madness born of cold. Reading that, you understand how easily these nights could end the same way. One pirate near the door rests his hand lightly on a knife hilt, eyes closing around him. Others shift uneasily, pretending not to notice. Trust has frozen, like the sea outside. The smell of sweat and smoke thickens the air. Someone mutters a prayer in a foreign tongue. Another spits into the corner. The quiet hum of the ship feels too loud now. Every creak, every accusation.
A monk who sailed with privateers wrote that the sea is the greatest judge, listening before she punishes. He swore he heard laughter in the waves after surviving a winter mutiny. Whether true or not, the story clings to the air now like salt mist. You take a slow breath. The lantern sputters. Somewhere above, the wind rises again, rattling the rigging. The sound breaks the tension slightly, drawing every eye upward. Cold seeps back through the wood, a reminder that the real enemy is outside for now. A voice from the corner speaks suddenly, calm but firm. Sleep while you can. Morning will judge what we say tonight. The others fall silent. No one argues. The ship creaks once more, a sound like an old sigh. Gradually, whispers fade. One by one, the men drift toward uneasy rest. The knife stays close, mistrust closer. Above them, the sea groans, moving under a sky too heavy for stars. Shadows breathe in and out, knowing peace lasts only as long as the cold allows it. Morning arrives with dim bluish light seeping through every crack. Frost clings to ropes, glittering faintly in the dawn. Yet the air feels oddly still. You step onto the deck, breath clouding in front of you. The sea is quiet again, a pale mirror stretching to the horizon. Pirates move like ghosts, silent and slow, faces drawn tight with fatigue. The cold has settled deep into their bones, but they have learned to fight it in their own strange ways. You notice how they move in pairs or small groups, sharing warmth. A man tightens the rigging, while another stands shoulder to shoulder, movements synchronized. No one speaks, yet there is a rhythm in their silence, a small defiance against the cold.
Records from a northern trade ship of the 14th century mention that sailors often slept in clusters during the coldest nights, pressing close under shared blankets. It was not sentiment, but survival. The human body produces more heat than any lantern or brazier. The pirates have discovered the same truth. You watch as two men lean against the mast, wrapped in a tattered cloak, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady, swaying with the ship. Another group sits on the deck, passing a flask, shoulders touching. The cold is still sharp and merciless, but closeness softens it. A 15th century diary describes back-sleeping, two men lying back to back, sharing warmth through the night. Practical, not intimate. Yet, in these conditions, every small gesture carries meaning. Rough faces, tired eyes, silent gratitude. The ship rolls slightly. One man laughs quietly, the first sound of joy you've heard in hours. He reaches to steady a friend, and for a moment the air feels almost light again. Even in the coldest corners of the world, companionship finds a way to survive. Experts debate cooperation among pirate crews compared to naval fleets. Some suggest lack of hierarchy forced deeper reliance. Others claimed constant tension made friendship impossible. Watching now, both seem true. The sea teaches cooperation, but never forgets danger.
You walk toward the bow, where a young pirate sits cross-legged beside a small wooden box. He opens it carefully, revealing coals glowing faintly inside. The heat barely reaches his hands, yet he smiles as though it were a roaring fire. Two others kneel beside him, palms close, breath fogging the air, faces lit by the red glow. One hums an old tune. You remember reading that some crews passed small ember boxes like this between shifts. The coals, covered in ash, are carried from hand to hand, a fragile gift of warmth. If the fire dies, it is said to bring bad luck, as if the ship itself has lost its heartbeat. You can feel that belief here in the reverence with which the men handle the box. The wind stirs again, sharp and cold, and a few stamp their feet. Others pull scarves tighter around their faces. Yet instead of retreating to their hammocks, they stayed together. One wraps an arm around another's shoulders. A third adjusts a blanket to cover both of them. These small acts repeat across the deck like quiet prayers. The cat appears, leaping from a barrel and weaving between their legs. It purrs softly, brushing against boots. Someone laughs and scoops it up, tucking it under his coat. The animal wriggles once, then settles, content. It is another kind of shared heat, a heartbeat against a heartbeat. A 16th century chronicler noted that sailors learned to sleep in rhythm with the rocking ship. They leaned into each other, conserving strength, staying warm through shared motion. You can see that rhythm now, a slow, unconscious dance between man and sea.
The captain appears for a moment,
pale under the morning light. He scans the deck, watching his men huddle together. Perhaps he understands what he sees. Perhaps he remembers when he too slept shoulder to shoulder with the crew before command set him apart. He nods, almost imperceptibly, then retreats to his cabin again. The men resume their work, hauling lines, scraping frost, adjusting sails. Movements are still slow, but purposeful, with a faint glimmer of energy. Each touch, each shared breath keeps the cold from winning completely. It is not the fire that keeps them alive, but the network of quiet, stubborn warmth passed from one body to another. At the edge of the deck, you watch your breath swirl in the thin air. The horizon softens. The sky glows faintly pink, as if the sun is remembering its strength. The pirates keep working, still close, still silent, still human. As the wind rises again, the ship groans in approval, its old bones creaking beneath their feet. Together, they push through another morning. No warmth lasts forever here, but for now, it is enough. The night deepens again, and the sea becomes a vast mirror of ink. The ship drifts quietly, heavy with frost. Wood groans, water hisses along the hull. The cold presses close, but the stillness is heavier than the temperature, a silence that invites imagination. Men whisper softly, words barely reaching beyond their hammocks. Every sound feels amplified, a rattling chain, a sigh of the wind, a cough that lingers too long.
Someone mutters about the sky, how the stars look too bright tonight, how they shine like eyes watching from above. The others shush him quickly. Old maritime folklore describes sailors filling the darkness with stories, ghost ships that sail without crew, mermaids humming to lure men overboard, shadows walking the deck before death visits the next dawn. Superstition was their armor, the night always full of omens. The cat lifts its head from the captain's chair, eyes glowing faintly. A few men nod to it, acknowledging a silent guardian. For all their roughness, they cling to signs of protection wherever they can find them. A bit of faith against a world that offers none. The ship creaks again. Someone whispers a prayer, not to God, but to the sea itself. "Be kind tonight," he says quietly. No one mocks him. Every man here understands the sentiment. Historians often write of pirate violence, but rarely mention their fear of the supernatural. For men who lived without certainty, the boundary between life and myth was thin. Some believed the sea had roods, capable of love or hate, depending on how they behaved. You can almost feel that belief pulsing through the planks beneath your feet. A faint light flickers outside the port window, distant but moving. The men notice it too. One sits up, squinting. "Ship," he whispers. Another shakes his head. Too small. The light drifts closer, then vanishes completely. Unease ripples through the room. Someone mutters that it was a lantern carried by spirits,
a sign that another soul will be taken before morning.
Baltic sailors recorded the dead lantern, a flicker appearing before a death at sea. Some swore it was reflected fire, natural and explainable. Others said it was older, a messenger from the deep. Scientists today speak of plasma, of ionized air, but here, surrounded by anxious faces, legend feels far more real. One man rises and spits on the floor, a ritual meant to break bad luck. Another scratches marks into the wood with a knife tip, the sound sharp, final. They settle again, though none truly relax. Breaths rise in small clouds, steady but too fast. The lantern trembles with every ship movement, shadows rippling across beams like waves. Pirates watch them, half expecting one to move differently, to separate, to take shape. An early navigator's log describes men hearing voices during the stillest nights, whispers woven into the sound of the wind. Some believed they were lost sailors calling for help. Others said the sea repeated every word ever spoken aboard her. You pause, listening. The wind slides through cracks, and for a moment you think you hear something softer beneath it, murmurs in another language. The youngest pirate sits up, clutching a cloth around his shoulders. "Do you hear it?" he whispers. No one answers. The others keep their eyes closed, pretending to be asleep. Pretending is often the only defense left. The cat sits upright, staring at the spot where the light appeared earlier. Its tail flicks once. A shiver passes through the room. The man nearest the door throws a handful of salt onto the floor. "For peace," he says. The others nod, grateful for the excuse to move, to do something.
Modern scholars debate how much sailors truly believed in omens, and how much they used them to make sense of fear. From the comfort of land, the tales seem quaint, but here, where darkness feels alive, reason bends quickly. The lantern dims, shrinking low. Men lie still again. Outside, the wind hums a single note, circling the ship. You close your eyes and let it wash through you. Fear is no longer sharp, only steady, familiar, almost gentle. It wraps around you like the sea's own lullaby. In the quiet that follows, the ship drifts through black water. Stories fade into silence, but their shapes remain, curled like smoke above hammocks. Every sailor carries a superstition close to his heart, a charm against the unknown. And tonight, as the sea whispers around you, you understand why some darkness can only be endured by giving it a name. The night sky clears. Strange beauty softens the fear. You step onto the deck and look upward. Darkness has softened into deep indigo, across which stretch ribbons of light, green and gold, shifting like silk in invisible wind. The northern lights shimmer above the frozen sea. Pirates stand scattered, faces tilted toward the sky. No one speaks. Even the wind is quiet, as if the world itself is listening. The lights ripple and twist, reflecting off ice floating beside the ship.
For a moment, the entire vessel seems to glow. Travelers of northern oceans recorded these lights for centuries, calling them spirits, omens, or fire in the heavens. Mariners without knowledge of magnetism or solar winds gave them names: ghost fires, angels dancing, sky serpents. To those who lived by the sea, they were both beautiful and terrifying. You can feel why.
The lights move with a deliberate grace, too fluid to seem natural. A pirate crosses himself, whispering a prayer. Another laughs softly, pretending not to care, but his voice trembles. In the glow, his eyes gleam like wet stones. A Hanseatic merchant in the 1400s wrote of sailors falling to their knees at their first sight of the aurora. The heavens opened and burned like oil upon water, he wrote. And now, standing here, you understand what he meant. The world is wide. The sea is older than fear. And tonight, the lights have reminded even the hardest of men that something larger, stranger, and quietly beautiful is still watching. The wind rips through the rigging, whipping the sails into violent motion. Each rope strains, singing under the weight of tension. The pirates move with practiced urgency, their bodies sick with rain and frost. One man yells over the roar, giving orders that are almost drowned by the storm. The words carry authority, but the sound is swallowed by the relentless sea. Water pools on the deck, freezing in the cold almost as soon as it lands. Men slip, catch themselves, curse, and continue. The ship pitches sharply to port, then to starboard, groaning and protest. Each sway feels like the ocean itself testing their balance, their resolve, their very will to survive. You hold the rope tight, knuckles white, heart pounding in rhythm with the crashing waves. The captain emerges from his cabin, coat soaked, hair plastered to his forehead. His eyes scan the deck with the calm precision of someone who has faced this before, yet you can see the weight of responsibility etched into the lines of his face. A sudden shout cuts through the storm. One of the younger sailors has lost his footing, sliding toward the edge of the deck. Hands grab him just in time, pulling him back into the relative safety of the ship. Relief is brief, swallowed again by the chaos around them.
The lanterns swing wildly, casting fragmented shadows across the wet planks. The cat, braced against a barrel, hisses at the sudden movement of water and men alike, its fur plastered against its small frame. Even the animals sense the danger. Every splash of water, every snap of rope, every gust of wind seems amplified in this confined space, each sound a potential harbinger of doom. Above, the sky churns black, waves rising like mountains in the dim light of the storm. Lightning flashes in the distance, illuminating faces twisted with fear and determination. The pirates shout, the wind carries their voices, and yet beneath it all is a strange, steady rhythm, a dance of survival that has been practiced over countless nights at sea. You notice how the crew moves almost instinctively, each man knowing exactly where to be, when to pull, when to brace, when to speak, and when to remain silent. Years of experience and sheer necessity have forged a silent communication among them, a kind of language understood without words. The storm may rage, but for this moment every man is attuned to the same heartbeat, the creak of the timbers, the crash of water,
the hiss of sails. In a sudden lull, brief and deceptive, the ship tilts sharply again. Another wave crashes against the hull, sending a spray over the deck that chills you to the bone. The men tighten their grips, lean into the ship's rhythm, eyes wide, breath ragged. You feel it too, the raw, unyielding power of the ocean, indifferent to human struggle.
The captain shouts, giving orders that cut through the storm with clarity. Hold fast, brace the lines, keep her steady. His voice carries authority, but not anger. It is a voice that knows fear and yet refuses to yield. Slowly, the men respond, their movements synchronized, a fragile defiance against the chaos around them. Above, the sky begins to lighten faintly, the first hints of dawn brushing the clouds with gray. The storm shows no mercy yet, but the faint light seems to remind the men of why they endure. Survival is all that matters now, and even in the cold, wet, and exhaustion, there is a strange beauty to this raw, unforgiving dance between man and sea. For a moment, you notice a single beam of sunlight piercing the clouds, illuminating the frost on the rigging like shards of glass. The pirates glance upward briefly, faces wet and tired, and in that instant there is a shared understanding. The sea has tested them, and they remain. Not victorious, not safe, but alive. And as the waves continue to crash, the wind continues to howl, and the ship groans beneath its burden, you realize that every sound, the creak, the splash, the hiss of the sails, is part of a rhythm older than any man on board. It is a rhythm of survival, fear, courage, and endurance. And for tonight, that rhythm is enough. The hours pass without change. The men move slowly, mechanically, their movements muted by the cold and the lingering fatigue. Each step across the frost-slicked deck is measured. Fingers stiff, boots crunching on ice, they check lines and sails with care that borders on ritual. A rope snaps occasionally, the sharp sound echoing like a gunshot across the still water. No one flinches. They have learned that fear here is wasted energy. You notice how the smallest details become monumental in this silence. A shard of ice catches the weak morning light, sparkling like a jewel before your eyes. A gull drifts lazily overhead, its cry sharp, but brief, swallowed immediately by the air. The crew glances up, almost forgetting to breathe. For a moment, life feels suspended, balanced between the storm that is past and the cold that remains. Below deck, shadows cling to every corner. Men lie slumped in hammocks, faces pale, eyes half closed, yet sleep is shallow. The frost has infiltrated the ship's very bones. Lanterns flicker, casting trembling shadows that twist across the walls. A few men whisper to themselves, counting knots, reciting prayers, humming old sea shanties softly, anything to stave off the emptiness that fills this frozen hold. The cat pads quietly along the floorboards, tail high, fur bristling slightly from the chill. It brushes against a man's leg, seeking warmth. The sailor mutters something under his breath, half grateful, half lost in thought. Small gestures like these, small acts of connection become precious here. Even a touch, a glance, a shared silence reminds the men that they are alive and not yet consumed by the sea or the frost.
On deck, a thin mist rises from the freezing water, curling over the rails like smoke from a hidden fire. Each breath you take crystallizes briefly, then dissolves. The ocean seems quieter now, though no less vast. Sheets of ice drift by, clinking and groaning as they collide. The movement is hypnotic, almost musical, a lullaby made of frozen sound. A sailor leans against the railing, staring at the horizon. His eyes are wide, unblinking, tracing patterns in the ice. Another approaches silently, standing beside him. Neither speaks. They do not need to. Historical accounts describe this part of winter voyages as the hollow hours, the moments after the storm when time itself seems to slow. Days stretch without distinction, marked only by the subtle changes in light and the rhythm of the ship. You notice it now, the sway of the deck beneath your feet, the gentle hum of water against hull, the barely audible creak of frozen rigging. Everything moves in a slow, deliberate pattern. The men begin small tasks to occupy themselves, repairing minor damage, checking sails, stacking firewood for the meager coals below. Each motion is careful, almost reverent. It is work without urgency, a survival ritual, a way to remind themselves that the world still turns and they are still part of it. Above, the sky remains gray, a flat, frozen ceiling over the endless sea. Yet, in the quiet, there is something strangely comforting in the monotony. The storm is gone, but its memory lingers, etched into each man's body, into the lines of the ship, into the very rhythm of breath and footstep. Sleep comes reluctantly, if at all, drifting in fragments between shifts of watch and labor. Each slumber is shallow, but each moment of rest is precious.
The frost glints along the deck, the railing, the sails, catching the dim light like a promise or a warning. You feel the weight of the cold, the weight of the silence, pressing in from all sides. And yet, there is life here. Life in the huddled figures, in the quiet gestures, in the careful, deliberate movements. The ship groans softly as it drifts forward, carrying its weary crew through the frozen expanse. Night will fall again. The men will huddle, shivering, sharing blankets, coals, and quiet words. The lanterns will flicker and sway. The sea will groan and whisper. And somewhere beneath the deck, sleep will come slowly, reluctantly, but inevitably, carrying them through the hollow hours until dawn. Here, in the frozen aftermath, you understand what the chroniclers meant. Survival is not heroism alone, nor skill alone. It is persistence, ritual, connection, and patience. It is the small, stubborn warmth passed from one body to another, the shared breath, the whispered words, the quiet acknowledgement of fear and endurance. And it is enough. The men gather closer around the fire, forming a tight circle that seems almost sacred. Fingers hover above the flames, not daring to touch too closely. One sailor rocks gently from foot to foot, humming a tune so soft it could be mistaken for the wind. Another traces a pattern in the frost on the railing, slow arcs that vanish almost as soon as they are drawn. Each small gesture feels like a prayer, a defiance, and a comfort all at once.
The cat stretches, its back arching, and the men laugh quietly. The sound is hollow but familiar, a tether to life in this frozen emptiness. Someone tosses a scrap of cloth into the fire. It hisses and sparks, the flame leaping for a heartbeat before settling again. The men exchange brief glances, unspoken acknowledgement passing between them. Warmth, however fleeting, is everything. A faint cracking begins far off, the ice groaning beneath some hidden weight. The sound travels slowly, echoing across the frozen expanse. One pirate mutters under his breath, "She wakes again." The others fall silent, listening. The cat twitches, ears pointed toward the sound. The ship shudders slightly, a subtle reminder that though still, the ice is never entirely still. The sky darkens further, the sun nothing more than a pale smudge behind clouds. Shadows stretch across the deck, long and thin. The lanterns sputter, their weak light struggling against the overwhelming gray. You notice the rhythm of the ship beneath your feet, the steady sway, the soft groan of timber. It is hypnotic, a pulse that matches your own. In its repetition, there is both comfort and warning. One of the pirates leans against the mast, lips moving as he counts quietly under his breath. Another traces invisible lines in the frost on the deck, mapping a world only he can see. These small acts, rituals born of necessity, seem to anchor them against the vast silence. Historical accounts often describe such behavior as obsession or madness, yet here it feels entirely reasonable. Survival is measured in breath, in warmth, in the subtle proof of life around you.
You glance at the horizon. The ice stretches endlessly, a pale, unbroken plain, every wave frozen before it rises. The ship is a small, fragile island in this alien white world. You imagine explorers, centuries later, stumbling across such a scene, finding only frozen hulls, silent crew, and the echo of a storm long past. It is both beautiful and terrifying, a reminder that nature has no need for mercy. The men stir, adjusting layers of wool, rubbing hands together, sharing small bits of heat. One lifts a small iron kettle, the water inside barely above freezing,
and pours a few drops over a sailor's frost-bitten hands. Steam rises, mingling with their frozen breaths, a fleeting warmth that disappears almost immediately. A ritual without permanence, but enough to remind them they are alive. Above, the clouds begin to thin slightly. A faint glow of twilight seeps through, casting long silver reflections across the ice. It does not promise warmth, but it signals movement, a reminder that time continues even when the world feels stopped. The ship shifts slowly, grinding forward against the frozen surface. Each inch gained is a victory, small but significant. You breathe in the cold, letting it fill your lungs fully. The men around you move quietly, their figures softened by frost and shadow. Every sound, every motion carries weight. The cat curls closer to the fire, a tiny, living spark in this frozen cathedral. You feel a strange kinship with these souls, united not by gold or glory, but by persistence, by the shared defiance of a world too cold to care.
And so the hours stretch on. The fire dims, the ice groans, the ship moves forward imperceptibly. Silence, rhythm, and small warmths hold the night together. Every man aboard learns anew that survival is neither quick nor easy. It is slow, patient, and stubborn, measured in breaths, in gestures, and in the quiet refusal to give in. The ship moves steadily now, slicing through the open water as if testing each wave before committing fully. The ice behind them drifts apart in slow, deliberate arcs, groaning softly as it breaks, a reminder of the frozen grip they have left behind. Each crack echoes across the deck, and the men pause to listen, not in fear, but in awe of the sound that marks freedom. The pirates begin small tasks, hands less stiff, movements more deliberate. One repairs a snapped rope, fingers nimble once more. Another adjusts the rigging, testing lines that had been slack for too long. Each action carries a newfound care, a respect for the fragile balance between survival and disaster. The ship itself seems to respond, creaking and settling like a living being aware of its companions. Above, the sun rises slowly, a pale, fragile disk that casts long reflections across the rippling water. The glow touches the deck, warming it enough to release the frost in thin, glimmering rivulets. The pirates watch it with quiet reverence. Each drop of water is a small miracle, proof that warmth and life persist. One man leans over the rail, letting the sunlight fall across his weathered face. He closes his eyes and breathes deeply, feeling for the first time in weeks that the air carries something beyond cold and fear.
The cat prowls among the men, tail swishing, paws careful on the wet deck. Its presence seems to lighten the atmosphere, a reminder of simple life persisting against the elements. A sailor chuckles softly at its antics, the sound fragile but genuine. Another mutters,
Even the beast laughs at the storm. They exchange quiet smiles. Survival has reshaped them. Laughter is no longer bravado. It is the soft pulse of humanity reclaiming its place. The captain remains near the helm, his coat frost-lined, but his eyes bright. He scans the horizon, the faintest crease of clouds in the distance signaling possible weather. He murmurs instructions, low and calm, guiding the ship with a patience forged from hardship. The men respond without hesitation, a harmony born of weeks spent testing the limits of endurance together. Commands and actions blend seamlessly, each movement part of a living rhythm.
The cat curls beside the fire, purring faintly, its tail twitching lazily. The men glance at it, smiles tugging at the edges of exhaustion. Even this small creature seems miraculous, alive, thriving in the cold they have endured. The ship hums beneath their feet, a gentle vibration that matches the rhythm of their own hearts. The waves lap softly against the hull, no longer threatening but coaxing, part of the pulse of life resuming. The ice continues to drift away, pale sheets splitting, groaning and sliding silently toward the horizon. The horizon itself seems to breathe, expanding, promising open water, possibility, and movement. The sailor leans against the rail, tracing shapes in the frost as it melts, almost unconsciously mapping a path forward. Another hums quietly, a melody about ports and hearths, simple and slow, yet comforting. Their voices blend with the sounds of the thawing sea, creating a fragile music that marks the return to existence. The ship gains momentum, gliding through the dark, alive water. Every motion carries purpose. The men's bodies, once stiff and brittle with cold, begin to loosen, sinews and joints reclaiming warmth and strength. Conversations are sparse, measured, but each word is imbued with meaning. The sun climbs higher, pale but persistent, casting longer shadows and faint light on faces drawn but not defeated. Even the treasure below deck seems diminished in importance. The silver and gold glint faintly under layers of frost and tar, pale and lifeless, while the warmth of shared fire and open air carries real value. One pirate lifts a small cup, fills it with water from the thawing ice, and passes it to a companion. They drink in silence, savoring the simple act of hydration as though it were a feast.
The cat stretches again, tail curling over its back, and begins to chase a small scrap of rope, its movements fluid, alive. The men pause, watching it, and something soft passes through the deck, a momentary ease, the smallest sign of restored life. The captain nods, acknowledging the subtle shift. He does not speak, for words are not necessary. The rhythm of ship and crew carries the understanding. As the sun climbs higher, the wind shifts, carrying the salt tang of freedom and the promise of open seas. The ice, fragmented and moving now, disappears toward the horizon. The pirates gather at the bow, leaning against the rail,
faces pale but brightened by hope. Their eyes follow the water, tracking the ship's steady progress. Every ripple, every wave, every soft groan of timber feels like a heartbeat shared among them. And in that quiet, persistent movement, in the fragile warmth of sun and fire and life, the ship, the men, and even the cat exist together as survivors. Not victorious, not triumphant, but alive. Enough. The frozen sea has released its grip, and the world, harsh and indifferent, begins again. The captain leans on the wheel lightly, murmuring once, "Keep her south." And the men obey, not from command, but from the shared certainty that life, fragile and enduring, moves forward with them. The fog hugs the deck, softening every sound. The water laps quietly against the hull, almost hesitant, as if afraid to disturb the fragile peace. You feel the ship's slow sway beneath your feet, a gentle rhythm that carries the memory of storms past and the promise of open seas. The pirates move among themselves with hushed efficiency, checking lines, adjusting sails, or simply standing quietly, letting the fog and sea hold them in its embrace.
The cat curls up near the main mast, tail wrapping around its body, eyes half-lidded. Its purring is faint, a subtle heartbeat that blends with the creak of the timbers and the whisper of the waves. One pirate crouches beside it, brushing a hand along its fur, and the simple act seems enough to anchor the moment. Around them, the lanterns glow steadily, casting golden halos against the thickening silver mist. The warmth they provide is modest, but it feels infinite in the cold clarity of the night. Above, the stars pierce the fog in sparse clusters, pale and distant. One of the men hums softly, a tune from a port far south, almost forgotten until now. Others catch the melody, harmonizing quietly, voices threading together like thin ropes binding the crew to life, to each other. The sound drifts across the deck and vanishes into the mist, delicate but real, carrying hope in the simplest form. The captain remains at the wheel, hands steady, eyes scanning the horizon where the fog begins to shimmer faintly. He does not speak. His presence alone reminds the men that movement, however small, is survival. They trust him, not because of orders shouted, but because they have seen him endure what they themselves have barely survived. The ship obeys him as much as the crew does, responding to his touch with a quiet, almost reverent compliance. Some of the pirates lean against the railing, watching the mist curl over the water. Each movement seems slower now, deliberate, careful, as if even the air has grown heavier with the weight of weeks survived. You notice the faint shine of frost clinging to the ropes and rigging, softened by the warmer currents that have begun to seep into the sails. The ice is gone, but its memory lingers, a pale whisper along the edges of wood and rope.
One of the men breaks the silence, softly asking, "Will it always be like this?" Another shrugs, "No, but it is enough for tonight." They fall quiet again, the fog swallowing words, leaving only the pulse of ship and crew and water. It is enough. Here, now, the past storms and the frozen nights are distant, reframed into memory. Each man carries them silently, the way one carries a scar, feeling the weight, but not letting it define the day. A faint breeze stirs, gentle against your cheek. The sails respond, filling lightly, and the ship glides through the fog with newfound ease. The sound of water against the hull is steady, soothing, a quiet hymn. You lean against the railing, eyes tracing the silver horizon, feeling the pulse of life beneath your feet, the rhythm of existence that refuses to break. The cat stretches, yawns, and settles back, and the pirates smile faintly, reassured by such small signs of vitality. Time becomes malleable here. Minutes stretch into hours, the fog bending them, softening them. You sense the ship carrying you forward, not just through space, but through a transition, from fear to endurance, from cold to warmth, from silence to a fragile, persistent life. The lanterns glow steadily, as if marking the persistence of hope. Each pirate finds a place, some tending lines, others sitting quietly, all listening to the subtle orchestra of ship and sea, a lullaby that speaks of survival and continuity. The fog thickens slightly, wrapping the ship in silver, yet it does not feel oppressive. Instead, it is protective, a soft cocoon holding the crew in a shared breath, a moment of pause between the terror of storms past and the promise of open water ahead. The sea is generous now, moving slowly, rhythmically, as though it too has acknowledged the endurance of the men. The ship's timbers sigh, sails whisper, ropes hum, and the quiet of the night carries a profound reassurance. Above, the moon glimmers faintly through the mist, pale and watchful. The pirates glance at it, shadows stretching long across the deck, faces softened, lined with fatigue but touched by peace. One stretches lazily, another adjusts his cloak, and the simple motions seem ceremonial, an unspoken acknowledgement of survival. The warmth of the fire, the scent of wet wood and tar, the faint salt of the sea, all blend into a tapestry of quiet life reclaimed. You watch, breathing deeply, heart attuned to the rhythm of ship and sea, aware of the fragile harmony that holds this floating world together. Every splash, every sigh of wind, every purr of the cat feels sacred, a testament to what has endured. The pirates remain quiet, content to let the world reveal itself gently, in light and mist, in sound and silence. And so the ship drifts onward, through the silver fog, through the calm water, carrying men who have faced death and frost and fear, now carrying themselves into a night of quiet reflection and fragile, enduring life. The ship rocks slowly, a cradle on the silver sea. The lanterns sway gently, casting soft shadows that stretch and bend across the deck. The faint rustle of sails above, the low creak of the timbers, even the distant splash of water against the hull, each sound blends into a gently rhythm, a song of endurance and quiet triumph. The cat, curled near the mast, breathes evenly, its soft purr mingling with the whisper of the wind. Below deck, the pirates sleep in their hammocks, wrapped in layers of wool and canvas. Their faces are relaxed, freed from the tension of frost and fear. You can sense their dreams drifting softly, shaped by the distant memory of storms, but no longer dominated by them.
The moonlight catches the faint ridges of frost remaining on the ship,
turning them to silver veins that shimmer and fade as the deck shifts. Each movement is minimal, delicate, almost ceremonial. Even the ropes seem to relax, letting the weight of weeks endured settle. The ship, alive in its own way, exhales slowly, rocking in time with the pulse of the sea. Above, the stars continue their slow dance, mirrored perfectly in the calm water. The horizon is a soft blur, a faint promise of distant land, but the promise is gentle now, without urgency. The mist curls and drifts like smoke from a dying fire, silver and protective. It separates the known from the unknown, the safety of the ship from the vastness beyond. Here, in this quiet, everything feels held together by a single, infinite thread of calm. You rest against the railing, fingers brushing the cool wood, and feel the rhythm of the ship under your palms. The gentle sway, the quiet pulse beneath your feet, it lulls you deeper into a state of rest. Each inhalation fills you with the scent of salt and smoke, the sharp clarity of night softened by warmth carried from below deck. Your eyes close, but the world remains vivid in sensation. The soft sway, the faint touch of mist on your face, the distant purring of the cat, the low heartbeat of the ship itself. Even the silence speaks now. It is not emptiness, but presence. The hush of the fog, the smooth motion of the water, the faint echoes of long past storms, all merge into a single, steady hum, a lullaby older than memory, older than fear, older than cold. And as you drift, carried by the subtle motion of hull and wave, you realize that the world has not changed, only your place within it has shifted. You are no longer fighting, not enduring, not surviving. You are simply here, held by the sea, the ship, and the soft, unwavering rhythm of life itself. The night stretches, timeless and gentle. The cold is distant, a whisper rather than a bite. The dark no longer presses, but enfolds. Sleep settles over you like a warm cloak, soft, inevitable, unresisting. Outside, the fog glows faintly under the moon, the stars shimmer endlessly above, and the ship drifts silently through the calm, silvered waters. And finally, you let go.